I don't think we should stay out here tonight.
Scotland's a very, very spooky place. It feels like there's something out there.
Lee, you better stop messing.
To set a horror movie in that environment was quite an exciting prospect.
As soon as I read the script, I thought it was fantastic. It's scary, it's funny, it's emotional, and I think all these characters are going to be great, and I think you're going to be gutted if they die.
Maybe.
We have, in some ways, a very sort of simple story. We've got, like a group of kids outside at night, and there's something very large, usually beyond the line of their sight or in the shadows, that is kind of threatening to kill them. And I think that's really quite a primal thing.
Well, maybe we should set up a watch.
Good idea. You and me take it in shifts. I'll go first.
Primal fears, I suppose, even today in the first part of the 21st century, are about what is out there in the dark beyond the ring of light cast by the campfire. And for me, it's a great big ravening beast, werewolf that's ready to rend you. Well, I wrote the first draft of Wild Country in about the 3 months after the birth of my first child, and it was kind of channeling a lot of my sort of feelings about parenthood, I suppose, oddly enough, into the script. My kind of principal sort of overriding emotion I felt at becoming a parent was the sort of protect and defend, like animalistic almost sort of instinct.
Hey! Do you want him? You can't have him, you ugly bitch!
I kind of channeled that into the story of Wild Country, which is about, obviously, a young girl who becomes a parent and then has her baby sort of taken away and then finds a surrogate baby and ends up raising it as her own. Of course, parenthood does change you, and it does change Kellyanne in Wild Country, but probably not in the way that you think.
There it's.
Where?
There.
Fuck's sake, that's miles away. Well, that's the whole idea of Wild Country hike, big man.
So what do we do now?
We start walking.
It is a teen horror set in and rooted in the west of Scotland, the greater Glasgow area, and we've cast, I think, all very authentic, real sort of west of Scotland, Glasgow area teens.
We saw Samantha Shields the very, very beginning, about 2.5 years ago, and she was the first girl to walk into the room. She was very nervous, but there was something about her that we really liked, and we thought, no, she's a girl for us.
Don't chase me, I think you're scared.
Aye, what's this?
No!
I'll have to see about it. It'll just take a minute.
Don't, please!
My character's called Kellyanne Devlin, and at the tender age of 16 she's already been in a relationship and given birth to a baby and had to put up for adoption and stuff, and so she's quite angry inside and she's got a lot of sadness. She's a lot more of a leader than I am and a strong person. She faces up to the wolf and all that. I don't think I would do that. I'd be too scared. I'm scared of Kit.
Well, you're welcome to be out here by yourself. Me and Lee are going inside, right, Lee?
Oh, aye.
Martin Compston plays Lee, who is the young man who is the father of Kellyanne's baby in the film. Is a really quite well established Scottish actor on the basis of his extraordinary performance in Ken Loach's Sweet 16. Again, he was our kind of real sort of first choice for that role based on that performance. Just a wonderfully kind of naturally talented actor who I think has never had an acting lesson in his life.
Shit, Kellyanne. I'm sorry. I wouldn't have been much of a dad.
I know that.
You'd have been a great mum, though.
I should have kept him, Lee. I should have kept my baby.
My character in the film is Leon Levy, and he is basically a bit of a rogue in it. Him and the main character, Kellyanne, have a lot of history between them, and he just comes into the story as people learn they've got something going on between them, and they're at a bit of a distance, and he's trying to get back in with her.
You better get down there. What? I'm not
leaving you and the baby!
We're safe up here. Louise isn't. Go!
I think people who may have just read the script say he's a bit of a bastard, but I quite like him. I think he's quite a nice wee guy, and he's a bit cocky and a bit. I think he's a bit of a character, but I like him. I think he's quite decent.
For the other roles of the actual teenagers, we have two brothers who play brothers in the film called Kevin and Jamie Quinn. Jamie, he plays Mark, who's the youngest member of the party and the one who gets the earliest death. His brother Kevin plays David, who is 17, 18 years old at the time of the film and is kind of friend of Lee's and who set up Lee's participation in the hike. The final sort of teen member of the cast is a young actress called Nicola Muldoon, again 15 years old at the time we cast her, and 15 years old throughout the time of the shoot, who plays Louise, and again first time, I think I'm right saying a first time professional engagement, who basically came on set and picked things up like that.
Peter Capaldi was on our list from the beginning, and we just knew he would be a great self-righteous priest.
You did the right thing.
Well, I play the character of Father Steve, who is a priest who runs outward bound, I guess, schemes is what you would call them, and takes basically underprivileged kids out into the country and leaves them there. Not necessarily a very wise thing to do, but certainly not a wise thing to do in this case, but that's basically who I am.
We're at the drop-off point that we plotted last week. Have you found it? I'm sorry, have you found it?
Aye. Aye.
Good. Well, consider yourselves dropped off.
Well, I think that Father Steve thinks he's probably quite a trendy priest, yes. I think he thinks he's rather smart and that he can talk to the kids in their own language and stuff like that. But of course he's not, he's just a complete prat, really. Rather unpleasant, really. But still with a underlying thrust of kind of piety and concern for their welfare, apparently, but I don't think he is ultimately.
How is she doing?
She's fine.
It's just really weird putting that the priest's outfit on. Obviously, this is the outdoor gear, but to put the collar on and the black suit and all that, it's quite creepy. Because obviously, we're making a horror film, so priests in horror films always have a significant role to play.
Remember, stick close together. Not that close.
Sorry.
The kind of steer we got was, Ken Loach style. It's like a Ken Loach movie, but a whole bunch of kids get killed by a big monster. Basically, my job is, to cast my eye over anything that's seen, anything that's not an actor or, not a costume or makeup, anything that's put in front of the camera. I've got to just kind of check it's in keeping with the story.
Max hadn't done a feature film before. He had done lots of short films. We saw those. We really liked the ambition that he had. We liked his energy. We liked, his ideas. We got him to do some initial designs of the build that we wanted to do, and we just loved it. We knew, and he knew what it had to look like because there already is a structure there up in Mugduck Country Park.
This set isn't stylised. I mean, if someone had asked me and I hadn't read the script to build a ruined castle interior, it would probably, to make it more frightening, have kind of Gothic detailing. And originally I'd spoken to Craig and asked him about things like that, and we went and looked at Gothic ruins, and he didn't want it. The thing that makes this film scary is the fact that it is very much rooted in reality. So we weren't doing a Tim Burton film, we're doing a Scottish horror movie. So this is designed to look like a genuine Scottish keep that's just fallen down.
Mugduck Castle, circa 1978-79, was a basically tumble-down ruin, not unlike this. It's since been restored. A practical joke was played to me by some friends who said, there's a head up there, there's a severed head in there, and of course there wasn't. It looked much like this, fallen in masonry, various stairways that had uneven steps, and it was based on my sort of memories of that.
We took dimensions from the original building and we expanded it slightly to fit all the crew in, because the camera kind of shrinks things down a little bit. But really from there we could put whatever we wanted in here. So We decided initially it was quite cool to have it coming downstairs, make it a kind of subterranean, makes it a bit more scary. And I think the key thing for the story was to make it as frightening as possible, make it not look like just a castle, you know, like a tourist attraction, but make it look like, you know, somewhere where you wouldn't want to be. When you start out, you know, obviously you design it first, you chalk it out on the floor, and then the construction crew come in, and once the sort of the basic shape is up there, you know, you can walk around it and you can check that everything's going to work story-wise, and you've still got a little bit of leeway to shove things around. Once everything's, you know, fixed, you start working with the rendering, which is, you know, a lot of the polystyrene work that you see there. What we've found works very well for this set because there's a lot of walking areas. It's chipboard because it's very, very cheap, but to make chipboard look like these flagstones here, it's very labour intensive. Aside from the, you know, the scenic artistry, you know, the polystyrene work and the beautiful paint job we've got in here, a lot of what makes it look very good is just bringing real stuff from the outdoors in. And it looks real, and, you know, we don't get to do this kind of thing very often in Scotland, so it's great.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate, pretty much the way I remember it. It was my privilege to return 25 years later, I suppose, and dress in a severed head, so there will be a payoff to that.
No way! No fucking way! Shit.
Lee, let's just take the baby and get out of here.
Hi. Good idea.
We wanted something that was really big and imposing, something that's really, really dangerous, something that you look at it and you just are absolutely terrified.
When you do anything like this, you try and do something that's different and original and hasn't been done before. Whether we've pulled it off or not remains to be seen.
I definitely wanted it to be a quadruped, to be, you know, sort of wolf-like, but also to be utterly massive. But the main thing was, as I said to Bob Keane, who designed the effects, is that I would like to have something that could actually be on set and in frame and doing, you know, as far as possible what the script required of it to do.
Craig always talked about them as being wolves, never talked about them as werewolves, and his initial ideas were that they were going to be something akin to dire wolves, which are big prehistoric wolves. Very similar to today's wolves, but bigger, shaggier, meaner and nastier.
It is a werewolf. I think it's a werewolf, but it's not a cinema werewolf, because obviously it's not really governed by the cycles of the moon. Its change is not governed by the cycles of the moon. It can not only be killed by silver bullets and various other things like you know, wolfbane and garlic and eyebrows that meet over the head, or hairs in the palms of the hands of the werewolf in human form, you know, do not apply here. In fact, we decided early on that we basically were going to kind of opt out of the whole corpus of you know, cinema lore about werewolves. I thought we'd go back to like a pre-cinema sort of corpus of like European myths about werewolves, which are folk stories, which are about basically people who may be, you know, the seventh son of a seventh son. They may be in one point of contact, I suppose, with the cinema legend. They may be someone who's been bitten by an infected person by a werewolf, but often they're just people who are kind of, and this is true of Native American myth as well, werewolves are people who just have like a bit of the wild in them, and sometimes, you know, without any particular, you know, motivation, they just kind of walk away from their homes or walk away from their villages, and they would disappear into the, you know, the woods for like several years. And then there are some, you know, werewolf stories which talk about people coming back after having spent 7 or 8 years, you know, in the woods as a wolf. And I kind of think that's the kind of werewolf that we have here, or maybe just people who went off into the wilds.
The design of the werewolf was something that we knew from the beginning was the centrepiece of this film. And Bob Keane from Image Effects came to see us about 2.5 years ago. We knew that we had to have something really, really frightening. And he had done the werewolves for Dog Soldiers, so we knew he could do the job, you know. But we were on a very limited budget, much less than them, and we had high demands. We had high expectations for this beast. You know, we really wanted it to be very, very threatening.
There was an early an early kind of false path in which we were talking about costuming dogs, if you can believe this, that we're going to get either a German Shepherd or an Irish Wolfhound and put an elaborate kind of costume on it to do certain of the actions in the film, but we early on moved past that idea. So then the designs changed a little bit so we could actually accommodate a human in the creature suit. And Bob, every step of the way, he was running by his designs by me and his sculpts by me, and but basically I was really happy with everything I was seeing from the earliest.
Once we'd decided that was the path we was going to go down, that determined its size, because it's a big old beast. And then simply as it was sculpted and as it was designed, we brought in the aspect, we kept the prehistoric look to it, but I wanted to make it look meaner and nastier, so we kind of looked at things like hyenas to give him these big, powerful front shoulders, his sloping head and stuff like that. But it was kind of a very natural process, and Craig was very amenable to every suggestion that we made, to be honest. It was actually a very agreeable process. We kept a lot of the human aspects in the sculpt, so it's kind of a cross between a wolf, a hyena and a man. If you look at the original sculpt, it has very man-like hands or feet. Its limb ratio to its body is very human-like. I mean, one, obviously this is to accommodate the fact that it is a man in a suit, but also, hopefully, to suggest the fact that this was once a human being. I sculpted the thing in full size, from head to foot, in wet clay, and that was then moulded. Its body, from the neck back, or from the shoulders back, really is urethane foam, which is then all chopped up by our fabrication team and turned into quite a complex suit. The head is made of foam latex, which is a lot softer, a lot more manipulable than urethane foam, for the mechanics to stretch the foam for its snarls and its blinks and its jaw opening and stuff.
There is a female creature and a male creature. They were both cast from the same sculpt and are essentially the same size.
Then, during the fabrication process, we made the male body bigger, much heavier in the shoulders, to make him appear bigger. And then the biggest difference between the two is their coloration. The female has browns and lighter colours. The male is a more aggressive creature. He's big, it's black, he has much bolder markings on his face, and he's got a kind of cool scar on his lip. Baby was just, we just tried to make it a cute little baby shadow beast, and that was it really. He has markings similar to the female, but he can go either way. He'd get dark if he turns out to be a fella.
The first day we had the monster on the set, it was pretty trying for Pete, who's inside it, and for the guys who are making the snapping head and directing Pete.
Okay. Peter Hawkins is the guy inside the suit. He's also our chief mechanic and did all the electronics in the head. And he very foolishly volunteered to play the beastie.
Especially like wearing a big, tight, furry coat, really.
Yeah, they've got that one, but they just
Gets really hot when the head's on. When we did a test, Dave, supervisor, had to keep wiping the sweat out of my eyes because I couldn't see because I was sweating so much. But luckily, a lot of the time, I'm not walking around so much, so it's not quite so hot.
It's incredibly difficult. He's on stilts, both on his arms and on his legs, so he's basically performing a permanent push-up whenever he's in the suit. And that, combined with just the terrain that we're trying to do things in, and the weather, the boggy ground, and a 5 kilo head that's stuck, 3 feet out from his own, it's incredibly difficult. I think a lot more difficult than people realise. The problem is with things like this is that once we get him suited up, people tend to forget it's a man in a suit. Everyone's oohing and ahhing at how lovely it looks, and they forget that there's a human being inside screaming in agony. And it's something we encounter all the time, but it's part and parcel of the job. We made a decision to use some radio control and some cable control to control the creature. We've done creatures similar to this before, and I was determined to get a big mouth movement on this thing rather than the normal tiny little mouth movements that such creatures normally get. I wanted this thing to be able to bite someone's head off. So the jaw mechanism is on a cable control. The rest of the mechanisms, its blink, its frown, its sneer, are all on servos. Problem is with the cable is we always need to have someone within 10-15 feet of the thing, so that brings its own problems, but I think in the end you get a better look.
You can get different expressions with the obviously the different servos that you use, like you can have just a snarl, and there's independent top and bottom eye, brows and lids, so you can have a little squint, or the top brows come all the way down to give more of a mean look, and the ears can go all the way back to obviously when it gets more annoyed and ready to, you know, kill people.
On set we have 4 of us, including Pete in the suit. One man can operate all the servo controls for the face, one man needs to operate the jaw, and I'm usually running around screaming directions. We was going to have wireless communication between me and Peter. Unfortunately, time and budget doesn't allow for that sort of thing. So basically communication is done via me shouting very loudly through the foam suit at Peter.
Stop crabbing over to your...
It's very simple but effective.
No, crabbing sideways to your right. That's it. No, come forward a bit. Forward, forward. Right, now we're going to...
I think the film in some ways has kind of the effects of the film of kind of a sort of, you know, retro sort of mid-80s feel about them, which is like before, you know, CGI really took off, and they were using a lot of sort of puppetry and animatronics stuff on set and in frame, and I'm quite pleased about that. There will be some CGI in the film, but I think quite minimal actually. I think for effects-heavy films these days, I think we're going to really relatively little CGI, and we're going to have probably more real creature in the frame, and that's pretty much what I wanted to do, and I'm quite happy with it. When it's massive in frame with its head and shoulders kind of looming, I think it holds its own with the best.
We thought long and hard about what we would shoot it on. Would it be 16mm? Would it be 35? Would it be HD? And we wanted something that would see in the dark. And high definition came up top of the bill every time. And also it's very cost effective. And I wanted Craig to have as much flexibility with, you know, the number of takes, the ratio and everything. And it was really good to have that, you know, behind us.
HD, I think, is a really good technology. I think it does, you know, significantly lower the costs of production in the post-production phase. It doesn't when you're actually like on the set. You basically still need all the same people standing about doing the same jobs as you would if you're shooting 35 or Super 16.
There's definitely some advantages for the low-budget feature because you can finish your film and then have a finished product to sell, and there's always the option of transferring to film later if it's successful. So I think it's a good route to go for the low-budget film. It's also very easy to work with, I find. I've done a few high-definition pieces now. It's particularly suited to any kind of process or compositing work. The CGI people love it. There's the advantage that you can see exactly what you're getting whilst you're shooting, or in theory you can. There's a disadvantage to that as well, because it takes away the legendary mystique of the director of photography, who's the only person who used to be on film, the only person who knew what kind of pictures you were going to get. But I think that's a disadvantage on the whole, really. I think it's nice to be able to see what you're getting. It's reassuring for everybody to see what you're getting, and an instant kind of feeling of success if everybody likes it.
Cut. Yeah, very good. Yep.
Okay, Jan.
You all right there? All right.
Okay, Jordan.
Okay.
That was good. We've got that one.
I think the mistake maybe you might make if you want to make like a feature on high def is to try and make it look like 35mm. I think, if anything, Jan and I tried to make this film look like Super 16. So a lot of sort of blues, sort of blue kind of filter over, and a lot of it using as far as possible, and certainly in the day sequences, a lot of sort of natural light, and it's I think it's really quite a sort of versatile tool. And Jan Pester, our DP, is probably one of the more experienced cameramen in the UK on high def right now. Tried to use, I think, the kind of the Scottish kind of naturalistic style of filmmaking as well, but just have it take a turn into wholly horrific, or the full-on territory of the horror film, a werewolf film in this case. We didn't have like steady cams or dollies or anything like that. There were no dolly shots, no tracking shots in the film other than handheld tracking shots.
I'm not moving the camera a great deal. Just now and again I stumble across the floor a bit with it on my shoulder. So we've gone for quite a rough look with people being slightly misframed, a slight edginess to it, which I think adds to the excitement of a horror film that's set mainly at night.
Over there?
There's various ways you can approach night shooting. You can sort of throw lights all over the place and sort of make sure that everything in the background reads. You can make it effectively moonlight. That's one of the most common conventions, because there's got to be an excuse for light, and of course at night there is no light, so it's a continual dilemma. Where's the light coming from? And the usual excuse is the moon, but I sort of get looser and looser as I continue about that, and sort of try less hard to justify where the light's coming from. But as far as the interior is concerned, I'm using very low levels of light. And that's one of the beauties of HD, actually, is that you can pick up just a little point of light in someone's eyes, and often that's enough, especially in a horror film, to work out what's going on and to register an expression on an actor's face. So I'm not going for a lot of light at all. It's very, very low key, and a lot of shadow. We decided, for practical reasons, because we're doing a lot of exterior shooting, to use blue light, 5,600 degrees Kelvin, which is a standard HMI colour. If you put corrective colours on that, they rattle in the wind and they get soaked in the rain, and it's all just a bit miserable. So again, sort of cutting our cloth to suit the resources, we just decided to have standard blue moonlight wash over everything. And I'm not lighting everything in the background. There's going to be a lot of shadow. And the other thing that we're bearing in mind is that everything in this kind of film has to cut very, very fast, so we don't dwell on anything too long. We're thinking in terms of just a moment, seeing the monster, and then cut to something else, constantly cutting. And I think also the approach on the night exteriors, especially, to keep that monster, that wolf creature, in shadow a lot, so that there's just a hint of its presence. I think that's more menacing, more frightening, and the whole plan is to frighten people, because they seem to like that.
I guess that was an abandoned baby.
I think that that look, that sort of handheld and digital look, because the film does shoot in high def, actually quite works for us if we want to suggest, like a naturalistic style, because I think people associate those techniques with, documentary, news, naturalism, and I think on the whole it works for us.
12B, take one, guide track.
When you're making a low-budget film, you literally have your house on the line for the film, and you've got to make it work. So it is challenging, but when you see the film up on the big screen, it's worth it.
People go to the cinemas to be entertained, and I think sometimes with Scottish films they think, alright, it'll probably be good, but I can't be bothered going to the pictures tonight after a hard day's work and see a bleak film. And hopefully they'll go see us and be really entertained, you know, come out and think, that was great, you know.
I would like to see a little bit more sort of genre filmmaking happening in Scotland, and I think there is a kind of critical mass of you know, talent present, and I know there's like enthusiasm for it there, because, you know, as I say, people were, when they knew that we were doing this, they were quite, you know, supportive and you know, went out of the way in many cases to help us out, and yeah, you know, Glasgow could be what Rome was in the mid-70s through mid-80s, which was a European centre of horror film production. That suits me. I'll be fine. Yeah, I like it. I like that. Yeah.
We're ready. Still and quiet, please. Quiet, please. Stand by. Turn over.
Turning over.
Good. Quiet, please. Running, Jen.
Running.
Headboard. Action.
This is the exploding cow sequence, in which Kellyanne has encountered a young farmer out on a quad bike driving a herd of Highland cows. She's having a kind of panicked exchange with him when the herd of cows surge away over the hill, and one of them is left behind. It's fallen down and it's twitching away. The young farmer walks up to, you know, investigate what's wrong with one of his herd, and as he does so, he notices that it's thrashing about in a very kind of, you know, uncow-like manner. And just as he reaches it, it explodes outwards in a mess of blood, guts and intestines, and the wolf rises up out of the carnage and eats the young farmer.
Very pleasant.
Very pleasant. It's a shot that I had always said to, when I first talked about it to effects people, is that this is the shot in the film that above all must deliver to the Fangoria audience, amongst which I count myself. So I'm excited, very excited about this one.
Are you happy with the way it's looking?
Very, very. No, I mean, there's real cows in the field and I can hardly tell the difference. This is great.
Yeah. Put his spleen in. Which is the spleen? I'm not completely sure.
You're not sure? That's the large intestine, and that's the small intestine, and that's its giblets.
Right. Oh, it's pancreas.
Giblets? Yeah.
You don't get giblets in a cow. Should be 5 stomachs. So.
Don't tell pancreas, shall I just put that to the back?
That's medically incorrect.
You're
big layers, Rowan. Yeah, during the exploding cow scene, I'm sure the pancreas is in the wrong place.
It's ruined the entire movie for me.
Otherwise, a fine performance.
Yeah. Still want a big bit?
No, that's fine. That's cool.
Just not the cups.
Sorry. Yep, a couple of pints of the good.
Cheers.
No, you want to on the off? No, yeah, I find it, you just put the to the side. Especially up at
Okay, so basically it's the infamous exploding cow gag, which we're going to achieve by placing this large funnel inside dead cow. The funnel is connected up to an air mortar, which is loaded with blood and various nasty bits and pieces, which we will then blow out, hopefully getting the red out on camera. That's the plan. Yeah.
Nothing can go wrong.
Nothing.
Don't.
Oh, rub that. Rub it, Yum, yum. Oh, little 60 bar in there? Yep. If you undo your, same as what I done, undo your clamp at the top and just slide your pole out a wee bit. Will that help now? Dave, just trying to lock down this shot thing. Could you just clear from the right a second? Just want to check you've got your cables out of shot. Yeah, we have. Thank you.
Should they not be putting foot
Right, let's close this baby up.
Oh, Pete, huh? Do you want more blood inside it? You want to start closing up?
It looks good for reflection, right? Yes, I can't see any reflection.
Oh, you can't get inside. I don't think I should because it's on the same side. Whatever. And the tent, because you get completely fucking covered in shit. Yes.
Right, quiet please, and even after the effect is gone, keep it quiet till we've cut. Okay, we are turning over now, please. Sound speed. 75E, take one. Jan? Yep, we're set. Amy? Yep, set. Action!
3, 2, 1.
Cut. We've cut, thank you. Jan? Yep. Go check playback, please.
I thought it was very, very well. We got everything we wanted, a nice big explosion. We got guts coming to camera, we got blood, you know, over the lens, and that's what we needed. So it's all good. I think it'll be a good moment. I'm very pleased. Bit of blood
And a gore rating of 1 to 10?
Oh, a 9 at least. At least a 9. Very solid. Very solid. Yeah.
Don't let me foot and mouth. Anything but foot and mouth. Or mad cow disease.
Please! Come back! Please!
What the hell?